This is Phantom Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Gretchen Villegas. You're a global development executive, and we're going to talk about global social impact and how to impact the world. But welcome to the Phantom Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. And how are
So
you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
I'm in a great state of New Hampshire, just to let you know where I am in the world. But one of the questions we always ask any guest on the show before we get into your deeper story, like what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
That's a great question. I was a Peace Corps volunteer when I came out of college. And I would say, that kind of job that, you absolutely love and you never want to leave. But yet every day you're just not quite sure how you're going to get through the day. Well, that was me. No running water, no electricity, but I was with the most amazing village of people in Suriname, South America, and that has stayed with me. And my passion for helping people who are looking to seek community development projects, bringing water into their communities, anything to make life better. That's where it comes from. And it stayed with me my entire career.
That's a great place to be. And we know it had space because people who are in the Peace Corps, people who want to do that, pass it forward, to
Yeah.
pay it forward type of mindset where you want to teach, like your mentor, you want to teach, you want to help, you want to lift up people. I think that's always kind of I talk to a lot of creative people, and they're
Mhm.
hoping that their art does that, but you're actually
Yeah.
doing work that does that.
Yeah, well, Peace Corps was like my first opportunity to really learn about what was global development because coming out of college, I had no idea. And what I learned was from the people I was living with is it's not coming with all the right answers
Hmm.
and telling them what to do. It's being that bridge to put resources together. And once I realized that, when they taught me that, I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is what it's about. It's about bringing people and resources together and making good in the world.
Well, it is creative because like you're trying to figure things out, and there's probably no one way to do it,
No,
and it's probably a lot of paths to it, and you got to learn from your the
absolutely.
happy accidents as artists. I kind of like happy accidents because sometimes like if I have something that's very intentional, it doesn't go the way I want. But if I
Hmm.
let let the muse happen,
Right.
but you kind of take your experience, you learn from
Yeah.
experience, and then you figure out, okay, you got to trust yourself, but also you got to have knowledge. You got to have some sort of plan. But
Yeah.
it's not it's not wrong to experiment a little bit and try different
Hmm.
things and see what works.
Absolutely. And I absolutely. And I think a big part of it's listening too, because you're
Mm.
working with people. You're not working with spreadsheets. You're working with
Yeah.
real life people who have feelings and have needs and have desires and dreams. And so listening's key for
It's
sure.
not like, the office job in the cubicle, like you're dealing with like you said, the listening skills where, a lot of times in the office, like it's a widget, it's a number,
Right.
it's a metric, it's a KPI, the key performance indicator. They're trying to hit these things, right? But it feels impersonal compared to like when you're in the arts or you're into like helping people in a nonprofit or
Right.
trying to establish like a connection with people. It's about that human connection, which I think the arts, we can understand that because like when I'm playing in a band, it's about me
Mm,
having a nonverbal
yeah.
conversation with my bass player, my drummer, where we're playing live, and we kind of know what we feel and then what the crowd feels. That's not a spreadsheet.
No, no, it's not. And yeah, I love that analogy that you just gave because it really is. It's a feeling, right?
Yeah.
Humanity. I mean, we're all about behaviors and feelings, and I think that in global development, you really have to understand that because you have to walk in people's shoes
Hmm.
in order to be a resource, right?
Well, if you're coming from like a Western perspective,
Hmm.
right, and you go into a society, it's not exactly maybe industrialized or capitalism, or it's got the same belief systems, the same mores and everything. So you have to learn, like you said, to listen compared to like an approach as like a top down approach where somebody comes in and said, well, I know the way
Right.
and we're going to teach them the way versus like maybe we should listen to what is going
Hmm.
on here and figure out what works for this group of people for this area.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better.
That's a hard thing because I think sometimes if I don't know in human history people have always come in and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
here's some indigenous people, they don't know what they're doing, we're going to teach them the way.
Right. And it's so true. But I think now is a real turning point, especially in global international development and nonprofits. I think we're finally now getting to the point of understanding if you really want a sustainable change, someone to an organization or community to take on different behaviors or to be able to move themselves forward. It's a different process, and it starts with meeting people or meeting organizations where they're at,
Hmm.
and then being creative, like you said, and finding where are the different pathways to move forward and how can you guide and facilitate that to happen, and build capacity along the way, really just by sharing your experiences.
Everything today is like the micro level. Like I learned in sociology, like microcosm, macrocosm. So like a
Hmm.
microcosm, can you actually have like micro development entrepreneurs at a micro level rather than getting them to all work in a factory or all
Yeah.
work in a mine? Can you
Hmm.
actually get them to actually sell their own product at a very small level that's
Hmm.
sustainable and more satisfying than working at the big multinational plant, right? Maybe that's
Right.
not the way. Maybe there's a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even in global development, what you're talking about in entrepreneurship, it is a huge trend right now, especially, when you start looking at the circular economy, kind of using like agricultural waste products to create new usable products, or, just taking value chains, right? Taking any raw material, say out of Africa, Asia, or Latin America, and transforming it. There are so many opportunities to transform those products while they're still in country, right?
Mhm.
Before, you just export them. So right now they're getting exported as raw material. But
Yeah,
if we could process that locally, the amount of wealth is
yeah, the wealth is
amazing.
exponential. Think of that.
Absolutely.
If you just send the precious metal versus actually using it to
Yep.
develop a product, or you have people that, they build their own global Etsy type of shop or
Right.
any kind of shop for services, you find is like you can provide services or products or unique items that are very specialized. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of capacity today in some of the
Oh, agreed.
capabilities of like robotics and AI and computers can
Mhm.
actually minimize the cost. Like 'cause suddenly you can
Absolutely.
do something with it that you couldn't do. You could get 3 people here in the
Yep,
US with a 3D printer to do something that would have took a factory to do, you know?
absolutely. I
So if
mean,
you
it's
created a
so
different
true.
route, then you could
Yeah, it's
do
so
the same
true,
thing.
and, vulnerable communities have so much internal capacity. It's like you were mentioning before, it's not about, "Okay, we have all the answers from the Western world," but it's they have so many experts locally who
Mm,
understand, the livelihoods and the cultures and the languages, and they can produce so many of these amazing, products, and we're not taking advantage of it. I mean, and one of the biggest things is access to capital, right, and investments because capital is so expensive abroad. I mean, you're looking, some countries are upwards of 60-70% interest on a loan, which
yeah,
is
it's
impossible.
it's
But
impossible.
the
Yeah, my country.
capacity is there. It's
Yeah,
just it's just getting the investment in there, and then, having someone, and that's kind of what we do at Nexus, in my company now, work alongside companies, local companies in Asia, Africa, Latin America, or NGOs to figure out ways to build up that private sector, because private sector is being really innovative and leading, a lot of these changes. But if we link that private sector to the social impact, environmental, social, and
Mm.
governance structures, it's amazing what can be done.
Yeah, it's in this mindset of the 21st century, you don't want to go and do the old school like mine that then pollutes the water supply and then wrecks the town, right? Versus like, why don't you use the internal capacity of all the individuals in this town to have their own secret sauce? Like everybody has their own
Absolutely.
capability, and they might have been, they have these products or things that certain thing they've been doing. It's kind of just it's innate in their area. Nobody else has ever
Absolutely.
seen it, and so that's
Right.
an opportunity for like a micro grant. You don't have to give them like the kind of money you need to build a plant. You
Right.
know, you could do it at a smaller scale and have a maximum impact.
Absolutely. Just recently, to share a few examples, we were working with two companies out of Central America, and they were only looking for about, 500,000 US dollar investment, right? And it's not a lot considering, this is, it's the investment that would take them, 10 times the impact where they're at right now. And it's working in using banana fiber and creating clean construction materials.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
think I've seen
yeah, it's
on
amazing to
that.
see it, as well as what are called substrates. So your cups, recyclable and biodegradable cups and plates and
That's what the
whatnot.
world
And
wants. The world wants that. I mean, the world there's
yeah,
a market for people in the world that want that sustainable type of thing. They're tired.
absolutely. And we have to. If we don't, we're all in trouble. And that's the thing that I don't think everyone realizes is that we're all in this together. We really are. It's
Well,
the hunger's coming, and it's not just for Latin America and Africa. It's coming to us as well. I mean, there's
oh
a
yeah,
domino effect. It's climate change,
climate
right?
change. It's
It's
a
all these
domino. It's
conflicts,
exponential.
food security. I mean, we've all got to pitch in and support taking care of these issues.
Well, destruction of the ocean. Like if you put all that plastic and all that garbage in the ocean that you could actually reuse and actually the
Yeah,
thing is like there was no cost to the corporations that created this throwaway culture.
that's right.
To me, you should you need to actually make them understand the true cost of what they're doing. Like so, a lot of times I've argued economically, and I was in college when I used to argue this, and people used to get mad. They were more capitalists. They was like, if you knew the price of your pollution, if you knew the price of
Mm,
what you actually the harm you do, and it was factored into your price, you
yeah,
probably wouldn't produce that way, right? So
yeah.
it needs to
Right.
be
It's a really
you need to
good
have a
point.
mindset.
Yeah,
You
and
need
but
to have a
some work corporations right now though, especially ones with corporate social impact units, they are doing the numbers. Not all of them, granted, but many of them are doing the numbers, and they're actually seeing that they need to give back. They need to develop more of their raw material, their supply chains, right, that are
mm,
coming from other countries. And they are creating programs, and they're starting to bridge more and work with more
be able to
uh,
work with organizations
global
like you.
nonprofits. And that's actually in my background. It's
That's
a
your
lot of what
wheelhouse.
I did. Yeah.
So are you able to connect with corporations that get that mindset? It's like, hey, I have an
Yeah.
established like funnel here where I'm doing something. And if you want to meet your global
Mhm.
responsibilities, I can help you do that.
Absolutely. And it's because I am linked to the vulnerable communities. I have a lot of network within and understanding of vulnerable communities in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and larger NGOs globally that want to partner. And right
Mhm,
now, resources are less and less for impact globally. And our sustainable development goals, we're way behind on the
mhm,
targets that the United Nations set. So and I'm a true believer that if we come together with nonprofits, multilateral and bilateral donors, and the corporations and social enterprises together, whether you're based in an emerging market or in the United States or Europe, that's when our thought leadership and our resources can actually really make a difference. And, that's been my experience my whole 25 years, living and working abroad for over 16 years. I brought those actors together. And I think that my next 20 years is going to be creating even more impact by helping others do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trend unless we get reversals because we got in the US, we've got some folks that want to go backwards.
We can't go backwards.
I know, but they've kind of brainwashed some folks to thinking that climate change isn't real. You
Mm,
don't have to care about the consequences of what you do, other than profit, right? So that's the only thing. And so there's a mindset where that's not true, but there's another mindset like if they get a hold of things, they won't follow
right,
the global standards that we need to be on. So
right,
we're hoping we're in the middle of that,
right.
hoping that
Well,
that
one
doesn't
thing
go
that's
that way.
interesting, and this is where I come from, is that you can make a profit and do good at the same time.
Yeah, there's some folks that don't
Absolutely. There's
understand
no,
that.
and if you don't make a profit, how are you going to sustain the good you're doing?
Well, there's a point where like you burn like you might be making a profit in the short term, next 2 to 5 years,
Right.
and then when things start hitting they're like
Hmm.
there's issue with exponential damage from climate change. Like
That's true.
it's
And
a-
I guess I should preface that by saying you can have long term wealth as
yeah,
long as you do it the right way. But the
yeah,
short term win is going to fall apart for
that,
everybody, no
that's
matter
the
where you're
problem.
located.
Is the short term mindset is like go by the quarter, go by the
Yeah, you're
semi-annual
right.
report instead of looking at like what's the 5 year lookout, what's the 10 year, what's the 20 year lookout. Like
Yeah,
what
that's
you're
a really good
doing
point.
is not sustainable, but it's
Exactly.
sustainable for the people who make the profit now. But it's not going to be sustainable after, and then it's going to fall. It's going to drop.
Yeah.
So that's where the mindset. Hopefully, I've had some conversations with some executives say, yeah, we're aware of this, we're aware of this, and then they still see them wanting to go with people that want deregulation and still want to
Hmm.
drill baby drill. I'm like, really?
Well, I think it's a balance, right? There's a balance between we need to make a revenue now and keep growing, but as you said, if we don't do it the right way, it won't be sustainable for
Yeah,
anyone at all, including your own business. So, you've got to think long term, like exactly what you said. You need to think long term because otherwise, it's going to come back, and it won't be that shiny or worth that much money at that point.
yeah. Because I mean, the world's dealing with drought, resource constraints, water constraints. They massive storms that
Mhm.
where it's too much water or not
Yep,
enough water,
that's
too much
exactly
wind,
right.
too much
And
wind.
and you can call it climate change or you can call it anything you want, but it creates difficulty for everyone who has to go through this. And it's not just, the drought in the Sahel in Africa. It's not
Mhm.
just the hurricanes that hit Honduras and Guatemala, right? Look at what just happened in Florida.
Yeah,
It's hitting all of us everywhere.
yeah, we're gonna see like potential category 6 hurricanes. You know,
Yeah,
F6 tornadoes. So they're already saying that the levels of these things are gonna go like we've never seen it
right.
in human history. We haven't seen this kind of weather behavior. Maybe the planet's seen it before, but we haven't seen it. So
Exactly.
that's it's like, yeah, maybe the planet has had this, but maybe we weren't on the planet at that time.
Very much could be. All we can all agree to this. Things are changing. And as things are evolving and changing around economic and weather and political changes in the world, we have to remember that we can't continue creating a huge divide between emerging markets and other markets. So while we're struggling, they're even struggling more. So from my perspective, we have to find ways to integrate and work together globally, and that means taking our corporations and private sector, taking our governments, taking our NGOs globally, and working with those that are in, other countries, and combining thought leadership and resources, because that's the only way we're going to be able to create good business and good impact at the same time.
I always think of sometimes, our national boundaries are a little like behind the times because like we're all members of humanity and we all belong on the planet Earth. So the question is like, oh well, this person doesn't have as much of a right to be
Mm,
equal on this planet or have the same
mhm,
opportunities because they need to be over here or they need to be over there. Is like no, like why can't all humans reach their maximum potential
right.
and have a and it actually is more positive and it's better because it's less conflict, right? There'd be
Yeah.
less war, less violence,
Yep.
more if you're more intelligent about how you behave with other human beings on the
Mhm.
planet and you actually value humanity, and you
Yes.
value the ability of people anywhere on the planet to actually become the best person they can be,
Yeah.
then that's going to be a positive outcome no matter what.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's a mindset. I think it's a mindset. So if you get it with the like-minded people, it's like as long as you can get as many like-minded people or
Mhm.
organizations to start to come together,
Right.
you can make your you can take that fight. You can keep on going. Right?
Right.
I think there's going to be more and more people as we move through this. They're going to
Mhm.
be going to what you're saying. It makes
Right.
sense.
Well, I hope so. And I can't. I resonate so much with what you just said about, can we bring everybody to their fullest potential? I think there's so much potential in pockets of emerging markets today that people don't realize, and if there were, some very intentional initiatives globally to bring that capacity and those skills forward, I think it would be a complete game changer.
Yeah, because we see it in music all the time when people go to another Africa and they get African drums or they get African
Mhm.
musical styles and they bring it to the to the industry. And we
Right.
bring different types of sounds, different instruments, different it actually it's always kind of cross pollinates. Right.
Yeah.
It's usually like you want that new thing. To me, it's like as an
Yeah.
artist, I'm always looking for what's the new thing. What is it coming from
Mhm.
here? Is it coming from there? Is it coming from Japan? Is it coming from Korea? Is it coming from West Africa? I
Right.
don't really care. It's like if I hear something that I haven't
Yeah.
heard that. It's like, what can we do with that?
Yeah.
Instead of
And that
saying, "No, we don't wanna hear that."
and you're incorporating culture, and you're including, other countries, and creating inclusivity and belonging. I absolutely love that. I think there's so many parallels to the creative side of music, and everything you're saying about, bringing that inside a
Yeah,
culture and letting others experience it. And I think that's the same thing that I've done in my career. It's
yeah,
like,
it's an integration. Yeah, it's
yeah,
the same mindset because if you get
love
stuck,
it.
like, "Well, I'm only gonna do bebop because that's pure jazz." Well, then you never
Right.
look at fusion, you never look at anything else, right? But if you say, "Well, like, why not fuse fusion with, like, hip hop?" or
Mhm.
bebop with country or
Right.
whatever, or world music with this. It's like, why not? Like,
Right.
why not investigate? Why not go take a trip
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
go to Central America and go listen to some pocket that has a scene. It's like, wow, we need to bring these
Yeah.
people and actually have them heard, right? Then
Yeah.
that's the same kind of opportunity where you're allowing the world is like, wow, it doesn't always just have to be this. Doesn't have
Mhm.
to we like to recycle the same things all the time, and I'm really I like to hear newfound sounds. Like,
Mhm.
I'm always looking for something different, and
Wow.
that's not what a lot of people wanna do because they wanna just replicate something that worked,
Mhm.
but it's like, that's boring to me because we already did
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think someone has to be courageous enough, right, to look for those differences and bring them inside, right? And I think there are people who are catalysts, right, for bringing that exciting new, whether it's music, languages, different traditions, or just ways of doing things from different countries or different parts of our own country. the biggest part of it is that we don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
What unknown scares people. I mean, that's
exactly, we don't know. And if we don't have, like you said, the mindset to look for it, then it remains invisible to us in the world. So,
everybody always wants to be safe. That's a human attribute I've always discussed on the show. Is like you stay
mhm,
safe. Well, you stay safe, you stay frozen. Like from a creative standpoint, being safe is
yeah,
like that's not like a that's not non that's a, like that's not
right.
going to do it. Right? Like
Well, I would definitely say that I definitely have a personality that is wanting to learn and experience, and I think I definitely thrive in the uncomfortable. Right, I
mhm,
thrive in not quite knowing
yeah,
how to move
like
forward
bleeding
because
edge.
if I tell you, look, like I would show up in countries in Malawi, in Tanzania, in Colombia, and I was told because I managed U.S. government contracts, go there, figure out how to how to register our company, right, and then find an office, hire staff, and get this project up and going. Your money's in the bank account, and that's all I was given. And it was
Yeah,
amazing. I mean, every single time was so different, but it always revolved around, 1, going into a place that I wasn't familiar with, accepting that, having to ask for help and listen, and I would hire staff around me who were to teach me, right? They had to teach me with the legal rules,
and the
the
cultural
labor
rules.
rules,
Yeah.
how everything works, and I think that's what's made me a good professional today, was all of that.
Well, that's an adventurous spirit, man. You kind of that world traveler kind of spirit
Yeah,
where you want to go and you bounce around. You get these people like Jack Kerouac on the road. I mean, you just want to go find
yep,
out like life. Like some artists, they want to experience life, so they go travel a lot, and then that gives them the resource
right,
to what. And then you're going there. It's like, well, the resource is the fact that I'm in this situation. It's unknown.
right.
Right? And there's you can get scared in the unknown, or you can be
Mhm,
invigorated by the unknown. I know a lot of artists
exactly.
that were actually, they're triggered into creating a lot of work if they push themselves where they're not like drowning. They're kind of just dipping their toe in the deep end, but
Mhm,
they're not all the way there, but they're willing to dip their foot into the deep end, and then
right.
there's another little bit in the deep end. It's like, why
Mhm,
not? Because like
exactly.
you're not gonna advance if you don't try something out of your comfort zone.
Right. Exactly. Well, I definitely gravitate to people who are more like that. So, and yeah, I hope our next generation of youth, I hope they get that confidence as well, and they can keep doing that because that's where innovation happens. That's where people start thriving and bringing out their innate skills that they don't even realize they have.
So that goes toward like mentoring the youth. So that's probably one of your core, um, you know, foundational things that you want to get
Absolutely.
into people is the willingness to do that.
Absolutely, and I in many of these countries, there, it wasn't that common when about 20 years ago when I started out there that the girls would be able to go to college and then
Mm,
find a job right after. Many of them that went to college, the young girls, it was because their families had money. But then when they finished college, they were to get married, and settle down. And many times I went into the universities and I said, hey, we're working on this type of project. Do you have any female students who would like to come and intern with my project? And I would always find a few, and a few would always stay on and work for us afterwards. And I think that was one of the biggest wins for me,
yeah.
was being able to provide that opportunity. And today, I still get feedback, at least from two of them from East Africa, and they are both holding very high positions in bilateral, organizations today in their countries. And so that's my win,
But
honestly.
you're offering that bridge and that ladder to kind of step out where
Yeah,
a lot of people like, go into different cultures and they don't have that experience where they don't culturally, they've not allowed women to move up the ladder. there's
That's
a
right.
ceiling of to where so you can go to college and then you get married, like you said. It's like
Yes.
you don't go to college and become the CFO or the
Right.
CEO or the CIO. Like you're not expected to have that role. Where when you start to offer opportunity and say like, hey,
Right.
why not?
Yeah.
Why not try that? It's
Yeah.
hard.
And I'm just really, I'm really blessed that I had the position I did that I could offer that. And I think, it was all, they did the work. I just gave access to an
Mhm.
opportunity, and I mentored and gave them, more opportunities to grow and learn, but they did it. They
A lot
did
of
it.
people just
And
need to have that apprenticeship or the
yeah,
internship just to see it get exposed. When I was a
right.
kid, I was brought to an engineering school in high school for
Mm,
through a summer program at UMass, and I got to experience like engineering level courses when I'm just
hmm.
in high school. You know,
Wow. That's
first
great.
year of high school, and so I was able to figure out, wow, I like this type of thing. But somebody
Hmm.
created this program to bring a minority kid into a situation where we weren't getting that opportunity. People weren't thinking
Right.
we should offer that. So I
Hmm.
understand from that perspective. Like it's like culturally within our society, people, well, we expect you to go to the MBA,
Right. Yeah.
expect you to do this. You don't
I
expect you to do
know.
that. So it's like when you start to like realize like, hey, don't just think people in these roles because of class or race or
That's right.
gender, like they should only be this. You got
Yeah.
to get beyond that.
Absolutely. And I really hope that is the case for our next generation, of youth globally, because that mindset shift is what it's going to take to bring forward those innovations so that
Oh,
we can,
or the
care
gender.
for people and planet, and at the same time make a profit, right?
Well, I think about it like if you have the untapped capacity of women all over the planet who have not
Hmm.
been given the right to do things and have a different mindset than maybe the men who have been running things for the last 300 years, right? So
Right.
they come in, they might not have the mindset we've been living under. They might have a mindset that's more about community,
Mm,
more about
yeah.
empathy. Not that everybody's going to think that way, but you tend to see like there
Right.
probably is going to be more of a movement toward those things,
Yeah.
which is gonna help more people
Yeah.
than
I
than
mean, yeah, what really resonates with that is that, when women receive, microloans, or women receive training and programs in global development, they tend to raise revenue, raise their income, and that money is invested back in their children, their household, or their community. And
Mhm.
so that's definitely, within evaluations, actually, straight out, evaluations have shown that that is how women utilize their funds. Not that men don't all the time.
Yeah,
However, it's just that with women, it's 100% true, always.
but that's right there, if you see the numbers there, if you put more investment, then you're gonna bring up the macrocosm. You're not just bringing up the microcosm where somebody gets something and
Exactly.
they just hoard it and
Yep.
then they have it, but if they've actually where it affects the whole community, the whole
Right.
city or the town or the province or the prefecture or whatever, then it starts to lift up, and the more people you lift up, then that economy, you think about the overall
Hmm.
GDP is gonna go up, everything's gonna go
Yes.
up.
Absolutely, and that's what these evaluations have shown. So, yeah, absolutely, and I think that making sure that women are a strong women, and youth, next generation youth, are a strong part of any programming globally. Not just emerging markets, but here in the United States, in Europe as well. I think that that's going to make a huge difference in whatever sector you're working in, or whatever type of impact you're looking to create.
But I think it's real important, like, to give people their passion back because a
Yeah.
lot of people think like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna do my career," but they're not super passionate about it. They kinda say,
Mm,
"Well, I'm just kinda phoning it in. I'm going in."
yeah.
But if you get people to actually get invested where
Yeah.
it's like this is their passion, they're actually gonna do something that they really wanna do. Like, if you get the person that actually
Right.
owns their own business,
Right.
they're more invested in the person that's sitting there on the line pushing the button, that's doing
Yeah.
this and moving that
Yes.
widget from here to there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been blessed. Like I got to do exactly what I wanted to do. I've gotten to work in so many countries with so many amazing people, and I'm going to continue doing it now as my own small business, right? So
Mhm.
Nexus is actually a for-profit business consulting management firm, but what we do is to work with social enterprises, corporations with social impact units, or nonprofits, either domestic or global, to support them in figuring out what are the programs, the partnerships, and opportunities to raise revenue and increase impact with a long-term view.
That's a good place to come from, because if you get them, you start to, I guess, spread the mindset that we've been
Yep.
talking about, and I give people a way to do it. Because like
Right.
one thing about the life coach talking about it, and then the next thing is actually having somebody to help you implement like that
Exactly.
aspiration. You can have aspirations, but you don't
Yes.
know how to do it. You can
Yes.
sit there with your aspirations and it doesn't go nowhere.
Well, absolutely. And that's where Nexus Strategy and Growth Partners is different because many of the strategy consulting firms, they basically come in and do recommendations or advise, but they don't actually do the execution piece of it. And
Mhm.
so that's what we do. And we actually do the best because at Nexus, all of us have at least 25 years working inside either corporations or nonprofits doing this work for the entity we're working for. So basically, we're taking all that experience and trying to pass it on to others so that they can also create impact.
Oh,
Um,
that's the best. I mean,
yeah,
if you can teach somebody how to actually fish and
yeah.
just instead of giving them the fish, then you're gonna do
That's
better.
the idea because we want to help people in emerging markets, people in the United States who ended up, in vulnerable positions because there are. It's not just, other countries. In our own country,
Yeah,
we
we
have
got a lot of
people,
vulnerable community.
yeah, in terms of education, access to opportunities and all of that. And if there is a way that we can help organize your programming, your partnerships, or give you the key ingredients or processes that help you increase revenue so you can create more impact, that's our win. It's the
Mhm.
impact. You need the revenue. We get it. We get it.
Yeah.
But we want that impact. So,
Well, it's just so sad when people think there are people that are like, well, this group of people, we can't use them anymore. You know,
mm,
and
yeah,
not that you want to use them, but like they feel like, well, these people are not, they're like they've become obsolete, which I think
right,
is a bad mindset. Because if you look at opportunities at different levels, like you can go to a town and say, well, this used to be a factory town,
right,
used to be a mill town. Everybody there that worked in the mills, they don't know how to do anything
right.
else. Well, we can't use this community because all they know how to do is mill work. But that's not the
That's
truth.
not
Like
you
you could
That's not
do,
true.
and the problem is people get pigeonholed, and
Yeah,
then
it's
they get,
yeah.
and it's a sad situation when people don't have the mindset. They have a more expansive point of view.
Well, with AI coming up now, that is going to have to change. I mean, we've had so many layoffs start already because,
Mm,
of AI and changes going on in terms of
yeah,
internally in companies. And the truth is, everybody who's working a certain position, right, has many skills and capabilities. And if the processes change or we replace some of the processes, right, with AI and other ways of doing things, we have to rethink where we need the workforce. And we
yeah,
need to give those opportunities. And, some of it is going back to more, skilled jobs where, making that education accessible and possible, I think is, a real opportunity at this stage where it's, it, it hasn't always been accessible for everyone.
yeah. That's the problem. Because like the problem with AI, what it does, it gets rid of the kind of day to day kind of phoned it in work where you're doing a task and it's
Right.
repetitive, doesn't involve a lot of critical thinking, but you needed numbers to do it. Now you
Right.
can do robotics and automation, even in like I'm a business analyst and
Mhm.
I'm involved in software design.
Okay.
A lot of programmers are getting replaced by AI that can just clone code.
Yeah,
But the
that's right.
business analyst role is still there because I talk to the business people in the C-suite. I
Yeah.
find out what they want and
Right.
I write out the user story or the business case. And that can
Right,
be done in any
exactly.
kind of code.
So
But
what would so in your situation then, what would advice would you give in terms of, those programmers? I mean,
Well, they
where
need to actually retrain themselves in the larger learning libraries, the machine
Yeah,
language learning
yeah,
libraries, and actually not don't be a COBOL, don't be a C, don't be a that type of programmer, but you take that logic and
right.
you actually start saying, "Hey,
Yep,
AI can do this, but you still
right.
need somebody that
Yep,
understands how to manipulate the prompt
yep.
engineering and
Yeah.
and, and task engineering because AI can be used for prompt engineering, can be used
Mhm.
for workflow engineering, but you still have to understand, well, how does that really work? It just isn't going to do it.
Right.
So you
Yeah,
need somebody
exactly.
like
So
me to
where
figure out the use case and the
Yeah,
programmer to understand. I got to learn how to deal with the tokens. I got to learn how to deal with the AI structure or the machine language learning. And there's still a lot of work there. There's a lot of data cleanup. There's a lot of
mhm.
data mapping. Those are tasks that programmers can do. They just need to
Yeah,
actually get involved in the new thinking. It's like, it's going
right,
from machine mainframe to like, Oracle servers to
right.
blockchain.
Yeah,
So this is another level. And I've seen a lot of programmers relearn it and getting certifications doing it and going that
that's
way.
great. Yeah, I think, what I like about what you just said is that, we all have gotten good at something because of the years of experience, right? And if you can take your talents and your skills and, you know, monetize them, applying it to something else that is evolving and relevant, I mean, that's what we need to do. Kind of like in my case as well. I basically took everything that I've done in my first, 25 years and said, okay, these are all the different things that I'm skilled and I can do. Now, how do I package them in a way that I could sell them to support, to help others
In the
do this
service
in
process.
field?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
repackaging and monetizing what you used to do as an employee, kind of as a contractor or a business. And it kind of feels like, for those of us up, kind of at a certain point in our career, that's almost going to start happening organically.
Yeah. I mean, it starts to happen when you start to realize, like, I don't want to do the 9 to 5 work. I mean, I work as a
Mm,
consultant. I go from project to
okay.
project. And it's this mindset where like some people don't like that insecurity of like, well, I could be down on a
Mm,
project where I'm out of work for 2 months. But
yeah.
you can't think about that. You think about the opportunity that you get to try different things and you learn new
Right.
things all the time. The fact that you
Yeah.
go and do that over time is going to be your asset.
Absolutely. And you're doing what you're passionate about. And so you're going to do a great job because you want to do it. You want to work in it. And I think you mentioned that earlier on in our conversation. And I think if you don't have passion and you
Yeah.
don't really enjoy what you're doing, you won't have those results.
Yeah.
Um,
It's going to be
yeah,
harder. Like in this world, the passionless jobs are going to be probably the ones that get replaced. And then you're gonna
yeah,
have to, it's critical thinking, it's having passion, it's taking that childhood dream and then saying, "Hey,
hmm,
yeah, I could actually do that." That I could
yeah,
actually there's a lot of things you could there's a lot of for everything that goes away, when the horse went away, then the auto
hmm,
mechanic became something. Like then
hmm.
the gas station became something. Like there's new tech brings new things. Right.
Right,
So
exactly. I mean, it's evolution. We evolved as people, the planet's evolving, and now our industry is evolving. So, and there has to be a place for everyone in it. So if you have a positive mindset about there's a place for me and this is really what I love to do, you got to go for it.
yeah, it's a law of attraction. Like if you're thinking down in a dumps and I'm gonna lose my job, I'm gonna lose my job all day, but then you're probably gonna lose your job.
Yeah,
Right. But if you say, but like, you know what? I want to do something better with my life. I want to
yeah,
retrain myself. I want to take what I do. And a lot of times I've heard it's like, almost every person could be retrained to do something. So if you
Absolutely.
when you get into the job interview, when somebody says you don't, when they say you don't have something, you say, "Well, I could learn that." Give
Mhm.
examples where you did something, you learned it, right?
Exactly.
They did something. It's because I don't know that, but I do know
Yes.
this, right? And then you take what, and the fact is, I like to learn, and I'm capable of learning, and everybody's
Mhm.
capable of learning. So a lot of times these
Absolutely.
jobs are so specific about what they want. But if you go
Yeah.
and make the argument that I have the ability to learn, 'cause I've done this in this sector, in this sector, in this sector, done that.
Mhm.
I didn't know those things when I went there, and I did it, right? So you
That's who I wanna hire. I wanna hire people who are not afraid to learn, to ask questions. I wanna hire great attitude and great mindset, and you know what? If you don't quite have all the skills, we'll figure it out.
you ramp up.
Um, yeah, absolutely.
But it's just some people want prepackaged first day on the job, they know like 90% of the job. Well, I don't know if that's a realistic way to do it, and it's probably not. Because you're just grabbing people from somewhere else and
Right.
like, you're just pulling people from other places, but you're not
Right.
actually increasing the pool of people that have it. You just keep on moving the people that have
And
something
that's
for them
what
to the
that's what
next.
employers do. I mean, even in the global international development, basically there it's a small, it's kind of a small pool of large NGOs working in it and corporations with social impact units, and they kind of move around from one to the other. Your career will be three or four of them, and you just kind of rotate, and it's not creating a new pool of leadership. It's exactly what you're saying.
That's
And
that's
I
why I've kind of railed against business.
yeah,
It's like, why don't you invest like you invest in this?
yeah,
Invest in people. It's like
yeah.
when I started 25 years ago, I was trained. I was actually
Mm,
given like time to learn something. That is like some people, they don't it's like with the AI today,
yeah.
kinda I really believe these companies, if you have somebody that knows like a line of business and they've
Mhm.
been doing it for 20 years, that's the person that needs to learn the prompt engineering because they know the business.
Right.
They would know what the prompt engineering should be. So why don't you,
Yeah.
instead of grabbing somebody from OpenAI, why don't you actually train them?
Agreed. Completely agree. Completely agree. I think there's a lot, we're at the tipping point of a lot of this right now coming into our industries and different sectors. And I think the things we're talking about, they are going to happen. The question is on what timeline will they
Yeah.
happen?
At
Um,
some point, you're gonna need to ramp up.
yeah,
You're gonna
yeah,
have to retrain people. It's like everybody at some point there needs to be a more consistent or maybe I don't know industry wide concept. Is like in these particular sectors there needs to be a concerted effort to actually have a plan. It's
right,
like
yeah.
I guess it's like if you're a manager, shouldn't you have a plan?
Yes, you should have a plan now. Does everyone? Sometimes they need a little help. So, if you need strategy planning and execution, and you're a social enterprise or a corporation with a social impact unit, or a large NGO or a small NGO, let us know at Nexus, because that's kind of what we do. We listen to where you're at, try to figure out where you want to go, and then look at the trends, look at the evolution that's happening around you, look at that North Star impact, that you want to make, and then figure out, like we've been talking about this whole conversation, how do we get there? How do we get there? And so there's so much evolution as well in the social impact space, that there are also people inside these organizations that will have to learn how to do some different tasks, right? Some different systems, just because there's quite a bit of change happening. For instance, like reduction in greenhouse gas is a very important metric today. Now, most, they don't have a methodology to actually track that. We can help you put together the tracking mechanism, bring in the expertise that you need, but you can learn how to do it, whether you're an individual or an organization. So,
Mhm.
just to give you an example from the
Yeah.
social impact side of everything we're talking about, it it's so many people think that if you're in global development or social impact, it's so different than private sector, right? And corporations. But it's not. It's just in parallel to something that the private sector has to do. And the truth also is that there is a lot of rigor in terms of being able to bring in income or revenue from those funding sources as well. It used to be that charity work was just, mass marketing. Give me $50, $100 every month, and we're fine. But that's not how you grow anymore. You grow by bringing in partnerships, between corporates, nonprofits, social enterprises, and going after US government funding or,
Mhm.
Rockefeller Foundation funding or MasterCard Foundation. And you bring in millions at a time. That's
And
how
now
you grow.
now
But
you
you
got
can't,
KPIs.
yeah, but you can't bring it in alone. You
Yeah,
have to
have a
partner.
partner. But now
Yeah.
you've got, like, the structure of a multinational where you can run the same kind of KPIs
Yes.
on your, Power BI and board and looking at your
Yes.
visualizations and say, like, "I've got the same metrics that you've got. I'm just doing, like, a
Absolutely.
different
Absolutely.
services or different, it's maybe not your product widget, but it's this
Hmm.
service, and the services can be tracked.
Yep.
So you can track that income from that service and these contracts and these
Yep.
yeah, you can still figure out the revenue stream, you still run the numbers. The accuracy
Absolutely.
side, once you
And
figure it
not
out.
not only that, you have to run your returns on investment. You have to know that every dollar you're bringing in from wherever it comes from, that you can be efficient with it, because in social impact, the more efficient you are, the more impact you can have on more people. And
Mhm,
that's something that's really coming to the surface right now, and something that my partners and I spend a lot of time on is how do we help organizations go through their programming models and delivery mechanisms to say, where's our efficiencies? Because we
mhm.
have to deliver this the best we know how. And that's where they are right now. If you can't deliver efficiently, you are not going to get funding any further. You won't.
Well, that's cool that you actually hold them to the fire, feet to the fire, and you're running an analysis where it's not just,
Yeah.
yeah, you're actually running a business, so
Well, we owe it. Okay, so if you're a nonprofit, right, or a corporation social impact unit, you owe it. You absolutely owe it to the people who you're trying to help to do the best you can. And so use business analytics to
Mhm.
know if you're doing it the best that you can.
You got the
Everybody used to say, "Oh, you're an NGO, you don't use business analytics." Well, those NGOs are in trouble right now, because if
yeah.
you don't know your ROI and you don't know if you're doing it efficient enough, you're going to be called out.
Yeah, 'cause how do you know that your program's actually doing what the purpose is? Like, if you're this is your
Hmm.
this is like your goal, and then you don't hit your goals, like, why is anybody gonna give you money if you never hit your goal?
You got it. That is spot on.
Well, I wanna thank you for being a guest on the
Yeah,
Family Electric Ghost podcast. We do have GretchenVillegas.net that'd be fully clickable. Is that how people get in touch with you to
sure.
connect with you?
Yes.
So that is fully clickable in
Great.
the description of the podcast. We're just live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We will be on all the other platforms where you can listen to or watch a podcast by tomorrow. Thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, have a great night or great, I don't know
You
what,
as
good
well.
day. Thank you.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a